When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. That's the strange thing about the deepest hurts. Sometimes they feel so big, so final, that they leave you quiet, empty. You don't have any tears left to fight with. You just have this quiet understanding, the kind that settles in your bones. She stood there in the doorway of the room I had called mine for 5 years, the room where I rocked my grandson to sleep. Her face was not unkind. It was just decided, final. And all I could do was smile this small, soft smile. A smile that said, I see. I finally see. It wasn't for her. It was for me. Because in that moment, I finally heard the question I had been asking myself for years. The question my son never asked. When are you going to go? It all started with so much hope. My son, David, was my only child. His father, my husband, passed away when David was just a teenager. It was just the two of us for so long. We were a team. A small, quiet team in our little house. I worked hard to give him a good life. Nothing fancy, but a life filled with love. Warm meals on the table. A listening ear after a bad day. I saw him grow into a kind, thoughtful man. That made me so proud. Then he met Sarah. Oh, she was a whirlwind. Bright, full of ideas, with a laugh that could fill a room. She was different from our quiet ways. And David, he lit up around her. His whole world got bigger, brighter. I was happy for him, truly. When he told me he was going to propose, I gave him my mother's wedding ring. A simple, thin gold band. He cried when I placed it in his hand. That's the son I knew. They bought a house. It was new, much bigger than my old place. One evening, over dinner at my house, David held my hand. Mom, he said, his voice so gentle. The new house, it has a perfect room for you, on the main floor, with a big window for your plants. He looked at Sarah, and she nodded, smiling. We want you to come live with us, Sarah said. It'll be wonderful. Family together. My heart felt so full it could burst. This was the dream, wasn't it? To be close, to be part of their new life, to see the grandchildren I hoped would come. I sold my little house. It didn't take long. I packed my life into boxes, keeping only what was precious. I remember closing that front door for the last time. I touched the wood, whispering a thank you to the walls that held our memories. I wasn't sad. I was moving toward my family. The first year was beautiful. It really was. I helped where I could. I made breakfast. I tended the garden Sarah wanted but never had time for. David would hug me when he came home from work. Something smells amazing, Mom, he'd say. Sarah and I would talk about her day. We weren't close like mother and daughter, but we were friendly. We were kind. I tried so hard not to be a burden. I paid for groceries. I insisted on paying a share of the utilities. I wanted it to feel like a partnership. Then, my grandson, Leo, was born. Oh, that little boy. He was the sun in my sky. When I held him for the first time, a peace settled over me I hadn't felt in years. I was there for night feedings when Sarah was exhausted. I walked the floors with him when he was fussy. I sang the same lullabies I sang to David. I felt so useful, so needed. For a while, our little world felt perfect. It's hard to say when it started. There was no big argument, no slammed doors. It was in the small silences, the things left unsaid. Sarah went back to work when Leo was 6 months old. I was happy to care for him. It was my joy. But the rules began. Not rules said to me directly, but written on a notepad on the fridge. Please only organic sweet potato for Leo's mash. Sterilize bottles for exactly 10 minutes. No blankets in the crib. I followed every one. Of course I did. But it felt less like trust, and more like instructions for a helper. One afternoon, I was playing with Leo on the living room floor. He was giggling, pulling himself up on the coffee table. Sarah came home early. She saw him, put her bag down, and immediately went to the table. She moved a heavy glass vase to a higher shelf. "This could fall," she said, her voice light, but her eyes scanned the room, looking for other dangers I had missed. I felt a pang, like I had failed a test I didn't know I was taking. Dinner conversations changed. They used to talk about their days with me. Now, they'd often start a sentence, then stop. "Oh, it's just work stuff, you wouldn't know the people," David would say. Or they'd share a look, a private smile about something, and not explain it. I'd sit there, smiling, chewing my food, feeling like a guest who had overstayed her welcome. I tried to make myself smaller. I stayed in my room more. I only came out to help with Leo or to cook. I stopped joining them in the living room to watch TV, unless they specifically asked. I didn't want to intrude. My world, which had once been a whole house, then this new house, was shrinking to just one room. The hardest part was David, my sweet boy. He became a man in the middle. I could see it in his eyes. He'd see me quietly cleaning up after dinner, while he and Sarah sat on the couch. A flicker of guilt would cross his face. He'd jump up and say, "Mom, let me do that." But Sarah would gently pull him back down. "She doesn't mind, do you?" she'd ask me. And I would just smile and shake my head. No, I like to be useful. But I wasn't just being useful. I was trying to earn my place. A place that I thought was given to me with love, not rent. One rainy Tuesday, the turning point began. It was such a small thing. Sarah was in the kitchen, looking at her phone. She let out a happy sigh. "Oh, the final proofs are here," she said, mostly to herself. "Proofs for what, dear?" I asked from the table where I was peeling apples for a pie. She looked up, a bit startled, as if she'd forgotten I was there. "Oh, just our wedding album. The professional one." Finally, I put the peeler down. My heart did a little skip. "Wedding album? But you've been married for over 3 years." She scrolled through her phone, a beautiful smile on her face. "I know, but we never got a proper big album done. We just had the digital photos. So we picked our favorites and had this gorgeous leather-bound one made. It just arrived at the studio." She came over, excited, and showed me a photo on her phone. It was a picture of the album itself, lying on a table. It looked rich and expensive. It was beautiful, but a cold little feeling crept into my stomach. "I didn't even know you were doing this," I said softly. She shrugged, still smiling at her phone. "It was a bit of a splurge. We've been planning it for months." Months! They had been planning this for months, and it had never come up. Not once, in this house where we all lived. I must have been quiet for too long. She looked at me. Her smile faded just a little. "Is everything okay?" I chose my words so carefully, like walking on glass. "It's just, I would have loved to have seen the photos you picked, to remember that day. It was so beautiful." My voice almost broke on the last word, because I was realizing something. I was not in any of the photos she was talking about, the professional ones, the ones from the ceremony, the family portraits. I wasn't there. You see, I wasn't at their wedding. They had eloped. That's the word they used. Eloped? It sounds so romantic, doesn't it? A secret dash to a beautiful place. Just the two of them in love. For me, it happened on a Thursday. David called me, his voice bubbling with a nervous joy. "Mom, we did it. We're married." I was holding the phone, standing in my quiet living room. I remember the sun was coming through the window, making a warm square on the carpet. "What do you mean?" I asked, laughing, thinking he was joking. "We flew to the coast this morning, just on a whim, and we found this little chapel by the sea. And we got married. Right there. It was perfect. My knees felt weak. I sat down slowly on the edge of my sofa. You got married? Today? Yes. Yesterday, actually. We flew back this morning. Sarah's parents know. They're thrilled. We're coming over to tell you everything. There was a long silence on my end. I could hear my own breath. Mom? Are you there? Aren't you happy? I forced all the air from my lungs into a sound. A happy sound. Oh, David, that's so surprising. Congratulations, my darling. I said it with every bit of love I had. Because I did love him. I was happy he was happy. But underneath that, a deep, cold wave was washing over me. He hadn't just not invited me. He hadn't even told me it was a possibility. They came over. They were glowing. They showed me photos on their camera. The little chapel, the ocean behind them, Sarah in a simple, lovely dress, David beaming. They looked so young, so in love. I made tea. My hands shook. I asked the question that had been burning my tongue since the call. I tried to make my voice light, curious, just a mother's question. So, I said, smiling, holding my teacup for warmth. When did you two decide to do this? When did you plan it? Sarah reached over and squeezed David's hand. She laughed. We've been talking about it for a few months. How amazing it would be to just do it. For us. No big fuss, no stress. David nodded, looking at her with so much love. Yeah. It was our secret. A few months. Their secret. I took a sip of tea. It tasted like nothing. I felt invisible. For months, my son, the boy I raised alone, had been planning the most important day of his life, and he chose to keep it a secret from me. He chose for me not to be there. I never said a word about how hurt I was. Not that day, not ever. I told myself it was their day, their choice. I didn't want to be the difficult mother, the clingy mother. I swallowed the hurt. I buried it deep down, under smiles and congratulations and questions about their honeymoon plans. But that hurt. It didn't go away. It became the root of everything, the invisible wall between us. Every time I felt like an outsider in their home, I thought of that chapel by the sea. Every silent dinner, I remembered the secret they kept for months. Every time I saw a family wedding photo on TV, my heart would give a little ache. And now, years later, here was Sarah, showing me the beautiful album made from that very day, the day I was erased from. Sarah came into my room. She had 2 mugs of tea. She handed me one and sat on the little chair by the window. We made small talk about the weather, about Leo's new favorite word. Then she took a deep breath. Her kind eyes held a resolve that made my stomach tighten. I've been thinking, she started, her voice gentle. And I've talked to David. We both think, now that Leo is in school, and you're so active and young at heart, you might be happier with a place of your own again. She laid it out like a gift. A lovely little apartment in a complex with other active people. A community. It was all arranged. They had even looked at a few places for me. It has a great kitchen, she said, smiling, and a balcony for your plants. She talked for a few minutes. About freedom, about independence. She used words like your own space and new chapter. She was so careful, so kind. And that's when I smiled. I looked at this young woman, the keeper of my son's heart, the mother of my grandson, and I saw that she was setting us both free. She was freeing them from the quiet burden of me. And she was, in her way, trying to free me from the pain of being a perpetual guest. I think you're right, I said, my voice calm, clear. My smile never wavered. It sounds perfect. She looked relieved, so deeply relieved. She reached out and patted my hand. We'll help you move, of course. Every step of the way. That night, at dinner, David couldn't look me in the eye. He pushed his food around his plate. "Mom, Sarah told me you like the idea of the apartment," he said, his voice thick. "I do," I said. "It's a wonderful idea. Thank you for thinking of it." He finally looked up. His eyes were shiny. Was it guilt? Sadness? I couldn't tell. "We just want you to be happy," he whispered. "I know, son," I said. "I know." The next few days were a quiet flurry. I started packing. With each item I placed in a box, I felt a memory detach itself from this house. This sweater I wore when I walked Leo in his stroller. This book I read in the garden on sunny afternoons. This mug David gave me for Mother's Day. I was packing up my presents, erasing myself from their home. It was sad, but it was also a relief. The pretending was almost over. 2 nights before I was to see the apartment, David came to my room. It was late. The house was asleep. He sat on the edge of my bed, just like he did when he was a boy with a nightmare. "Mom," he said. He was crying, silent tears just rolling down his face. "I'm so sorry." I put my hand on his. "For what, darling?" "For everything," he choked out. "For the wedding. For not making you feel at home here. I see it now. I've seen it for a long time. I just didn't know how to fix it." His words opened the floodgates in my own heart. But my tears were quiet too. "You don't need to fix me, David. I'm not broken. I feel like I chose," he whispered, the words tearing out of him. "Between her and you. And I chose her every time. Even when it hurt you." I looked at my son, my beautiful boy, weighed down by a guilt I never wanted him to carry. "David," I said softly, "you were supposed to choose her. That's what a husband does. He chooses his wife. He builds a new family. That's how it should be." He shook his head. "But not like that. Not by making you feel alone." We sat in the dim light for a long time. He talked. He told me about the pressure he felt. From Sarah, who wanted a certain kind of life, a certain kind of home. From himself, wanting to be a good provider, a good husband. And from me, just by being there, a living reminder of a past he had to gently leave behind to grow up. "I loved having you here, Mom," he said. "But I also felt stuck in the middle. And I handled it badly. I hid from it. I hid the wedding plans because I was scared you'd be upset, or you'd want to come, and Sarah wanted it to be just us. I took the easy way out. And I've been taking the easy way out ever since. Letting little things slide. Letting the distance grow. Hearing him say it, hearing him finally see the truth we had all been living, was like a deep breath after being underwater for years. There was no anger, just a profound, aching sadness for all the lost time, the lost closeness. "I love you, son," I said. "That never changed. Not for a second. I love you too, Mom. So much." He put his head in his hands. Are we going to be okay?" I lifted his chin. "We are family. That doesn't end with a change of address. We will find a new way, a better way." That conversation didn't change my moving out, but it changed everything else. It removed the silent, heavy thing that had been sitting between us for years. I moved into the little apartment. It is quiet. It is mine. The first night was strange. The silence was different. It wasn't the silence of being alone in a house full of other people. It was just silence, my silence. And in that silence, I began to find myself again. The woman I was before I was just a mother, just a grandmother, just a mother-in-law. David, Sarah, and Leo visit often. Leo loves the balcony. Now when they come, we are truly present for each other. We talk, we laugh. We are not sharing a roof, so we are forced to share our time, our attention. It is more real. Sarah brought me a housewarming plant. She helped me put my dishes in the cabinets. There was a new ease between us, a respect for boundaries that now had walls. We are friendlier now than we ever were living together. And David, he calls me every day, just to chat, not out of duty, but out of want. He comes over for coffee sometimes on his way to work. We are rebuilding our relationship, not as mother and child living under one roof, but as two adults who love each other deeply. So, when my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled. I smiled because her words were not a sentence. They were a truth I had been too afraid to see. I thought love meant being intertwined, living in each other's pockets. I thought family was one big house, one shared life. But I was wrong. Love, real love, sometimes needs space to breathe. It needs its own rooms, its own walls. A mother's love for her grown son is not about holding on. It's about having the strength to let go, so he can build his own family without looking over his shoulder. So he can be a husband without guilt, a father without divided loyalty. And a son's love for his mother, it doesn't have to live in his house to be true. It can live in daily phone calls, in weekly dinners, in the way his eyes light up when he sees her playing with his son on her own familiar floor. My home is quiet now, but my heart is not lonely. It is full of a different kind of love. A love that is chosen, not obligated. A love that visits. And because it visits, it truly sees me. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is not moving in. It is moving out and making a new home where your family can come to find you, whole and happy, waiting for them with open arms and a heart that has finally found its peace.